Part 2. Sorry about that. The camera that I use has a 30-minute time limit, after which it automatically shuts off. So if I'm rambling on for too long, the camera just automatically shuts off, and then I have to start it up again and upload a part 2. I was talking, I believe, about Bobby Seale right when the camera shut itself off, and comparing the reality with the Aaron Sorkin version. On the Aaron Sorkin version is actually Richard Schultz, who suggests a mistrial. In Aaron Sorkin's version, Richard Schultz is actually a conflicted man who actually has a conscience and feels conflicted about his role in this whole prosecution. I think that whole thing is just an Aaron Sorkin invention. Although, I believe in the actual transcripts, when Bobby Seale was first brought back in and he was bound and gagged, Thomas Foran, who is not portrayed as a good one in Aaron Sorkin's version, the prosecutor Thomas Foran was the one who said, "Your Honor, if Bobby Seale agrees to be quiet, can we take off the gag and the restraints?" So apparently Thomas Foran was a little bit disturbed by this spectacle. But again, and I believe I said this in the first trial, it would actually went on for 3 days before eventually Judge Julius Hoffman agreed that that Bobby Seale's case was a mistrial. Okay, talking about some other differences between the movie and real life. Jerry Rubin in the movie version is portrayed by an actor who seems to be going for like the stoned type hippie type thing, like the whoa dude, and it's not too far off of the actual Jerry Rubin, I think. But if you watch clips of the Jerry Rubin, and you can find clips of him online on YouTube, I think the most infamous time he was on TV was when John Lennon brought him on the Mike Douglas show, and I think it was 1970, and he was like on TV with John Lennon for a half hour on the Mike Douglas show. But you know, he was on TV a lot back in the 1960s, and you can find various clips of that. He's not like the layback, chill dude they portray him as in the movie. He was a lot more high strung. A lot more, he talked a lot faster and seemed to be a lot more high-strung. David Dillinger is, I guess, not all that different from his portrayal in the movie. I think the actor they've got him portraying him is a bit more somber and dignified. And not that David Dillinger wasn't somber and dignified, but he was more of a talented speaker than I think you get the impression from in this movie. He was a lot more charismatic in real life. It's interesting. He was a lifelong pacifist, a conscientious objector, even during World War I, which the movie does make a point of mentioning. But in the actual trial transcripts, he seems to have been accused several times of obstructing the marshals during some of the scuffles over Bobby Seale. So he was actually kind of getting in there a little bit, and the judge cited him several times for contempt of court because of his various outbursts. The moment in Aaron Sorkin's movie when he punches a deputy because the deputy tries to restrain him when he's having an outburst is, I believe, again, pure Aaron Sorkin. And the irony is that he's a lifelong pacifist, but he just snapped and committed an act of violence, and then he was horrified by what he did, and they show the shots of his wife and kids. And again, that version is pure Aaron Sorkin. That never happened in real life. But it somewhat strikes me as Aaron Sorkin missing the more dramatic version that actually happened in history. Is he does seem to have been involved in a little bit of the scuffles with the Bobby Seale thing. So rather than manufacturing an incident where that never happened, if you wanted to have the same dramatic instance, maybe you could have incorporated that with the real life incident of him getting involved in the scuffles with the Bobby Seale. Lee Weiner and John Freunds are interesting in that they were the only two in this trial who were not leaders of the anti-war movement. David Dillinger, Tom Hayden, Rennie Davis, Jerry Rubin, Abby Hoffman, and Bobby Seale were all leaders in their respective organizations. Lee Weiner and John Freunds, it's a little bit hard to figure out actually who they were. There doesn't seem to be that much information on them. I guess they were involved in the mobilization to end the war movement. I guess Aaron Sorkin, to his credit, or discredit, or however you want to play it, puts the spotlight on the fact that these two do seem to be the odd ones out. They were the only ones who weren't really famous at the time of the trial. So you always have them sitting next to each other and making comments like, what are we doing here? Why are we in the trial? We're the only ones who aren't famous. Like he kind of shines a spotlight on that, or has them shine a spotlight on that through their dialogue. And then at one point in Aaron Sorkin's movie, the Abby Hoffman character says, "You guys ever wonder what you're doing here? You're the givebacks. They put you on the trial so that the jury can acquit you, and then once the jury has acquitted you, then they don't feel that bad about convicting the rest of us, because they feel like they've already been merciful." And I've never really heard that said anywhere else. It does, and I mean, to a certain extent, it does seem to solve a problem. And the problem is, what are these two guys doing here with the rest of them? They're obviously not leaders of the anti-war movement. But the problem with with Sorkin's explanation is, again, if you look at the actual trial, the government does not seem to be playing softball with Lee Weiner and John Freunds. Apparently, the government had a case against them that they were teaching people how to make incendiary devices or teaching people how to make bombs. And the government seems to have been going for the jugular with Lee Weiner and John Freunds as much as it was going for the jugular with the rest of them, which is why I'm not sure I buy that Sorkin theory that they were intentionally put in with the rest of them as just a give back for the jury. But yeah, it is, I mean, as Sorkin depicts in the movie, they were kind of the only two in that group who were not leaders or were not famous before the trial began. I mean, even if you go to their Wikipedia page, the only thing they've ever seemed to have been notable for is their inclusion in this trial. Abby Hoffman, actually, I've been criticizing Sorkin's portrayals, but Abby Hoffman is pretty much as I pictured him. The only thing is, I mean, if you watch video of Abby Hoffman, he's not quite as sharp as Sorkin makes him out to be. And, it's understandable, because Sorkin is, when you write the dialogue in advance, it's a lot more smooth and polished than when you're just talking off the cuff. And Abby Hoffman was mostly talking off the cuff during his TV appearances and his interviews. So Sorkin is polishing up the dialogue and making him a lot more snappy than he was in real life. But I think other than that, the basic essence of Abby Hoffman is there. The big difference, and a lot of other people have pointed this out before me, is that Sacha Baron Cohen is much older than Abby Hoffman was at the time. I think he's much older than Abby Hoffman ever was, because Abby Hoffman committed suicide, I believe, at the age of 52. And Sacha Baron Cohen, I believe, is 54 now. But at the trial, Abby Hoffman was only 32. I'm willing to forgive that, because I think Sacha Baron Cohen seems to embody Abby Hoffman's character perfectly in a lot of other ways. It seems to embody his mannerisms and stuff like that. I read one reviewer that says Abby Hoffman kind of looked a little bit old for his age anyways. And I'm not sure that's entirely true. He didn't necessarily look young at 32. He had kind of a cynical look to him, but I'm not sure he looked quite like he was in his 50s at that age. But whatever. I'm willing to forgive that. I think Sacha Baron Cohen did an excellent job of Abby Hoffman otherwise. There are any number of details in the Aaron Sorkin movie that are just pure Aaron Sorkin and were not historical. Jerry Rubin getting his heart broken by an undercover cop, I think, is just pure Aaron Sorkin. Although I've got to admit, I mean, on one hand, it's incredibly cheesy. And I think Aaron Sorkin does, for all his brilliance, he does have these cheesy moments. On the other hand, I think it worked within the context of an Aaron Sorkin drama. That scene where Jerry Rubin and Abby Hoffman are confronting Richard Schultz about this, and Jerry Rubin's complaining that he got his heart broken and how he got ensorcelled by this girl, and Richard Schultz doesn't really understand what's happening, and Abby Hoffman is trying to calm Jerry Rubin down. I thought that was I thought that scene worked great. You know, as cheesy as it was funny. It worked, and I think that's kind of my verdict on a lot of this. Is even though it's not historical at all, it's works. It's fun. It's classic Aaron Sorkin. The only thing, I guess, in terms of like an entertainment type criticism, and I've seen some other people make this criticism as well, is there does seem to be somewhat of a tonal inconsistency between some of the various themes. Like this movie tackles issues like Fred Hampton getting assassinated, Bobby Seale being bound and gagged at the trial. And you've got the serious moments and you've got the light moments, and it can be a little bit jarring, but again, in terms of entertainment value, maybe there's something to be said for jarring. It keeps you on your toes a little bit. Sometimes I like movies which go for different tones and different scenes. At least they tend to keep me interested in what's happening. The other thing is, in this movie, Jerry Rubin has this girlfriend. Sorry, not Jerry Rubin. Rennie Davis has this girlfriend, Sarah Beth, who doesn't approve of him being a protest leader. And it's implied that he hasn't told her that he's a protest leader. He says, when I'm around her, I downplay the revolutionary aspect of my personality, which I think is indicating maybe she doesn't even know he's involved with the protests. And so Tom Hayden ends up letting the air out of the tires of a police car to save his friend the embarrassment of showing up with the undercover cops behind him when he goes to his girlfriend's house. And I think that, again, that's all pure Aaron Sorkin. And on the one hand, it's like, oh, this is so cheesy and terrible. And on the other hand, it's all part of the fun with an Aaron Sorkin movie. Initially, when I was watching this, I thought, okay, none of that actually happened. And then I Googled it, and actually, Tom Hayden actually was arrested for letting the air out of a police car at the beginning of the week. So there's roughly a historical basis behind that. I think, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I'm 90% sure, 99% sure, that Rennie Davis having the secret girlfriend, and that was the reason Tom Hayden let the air out of the police car tires. I think that's all invented by Sorkin. Why did Tom Hayden let the air out of the police car tires? I can't seem to find this described anywhere. I think this was just Tom Hayden having an anti-establishment moment. And perhaps he could be a little impulsive like that in real life. Didn't obviously fit with the dignified, serious Tom Hayden that Aaron Sorkin wanted to portray, so I think that's why he invented this Sarah Beth character. Yeah, and lots of things like that, which I mean, the whole ending is when Tom Hayden is the only one who's allowed to give a speech. In actuality, they all gave speeches. They all gave speeches twice, because they gave speeches before they got sentenced for contempt of court, and then they gave speeches before they got sentenced for the actual charges. So that in Aaron Sorkin's movie, only Tom Hayden is allowed to give the speech. And the judge tells him it has to be brief, and then Tom Hayden lists off all the names, and the judge is banging on the gavel. That's just Aaron Sorkin's invention. And it's cheesy, and it's embarrassing and corny, but it works, kind of. The whole thing with Ramsey Clark, I actually don't know offhand whether that's historical or not. I don't remember having seen anything about that before. I have to admit, I got a little bit lazy on doing the research before I turned on this video camera. But somebody let me know, if somebody knows better than me, how historical that whole section with Ramsey Clark was in the Aaron Sorkin section. Yeah, what else did I want to say? Oh, right. In the movie, when they're going to bail out Tom Hayden, they go to the hill, they lead the crowd away, and then there's a confrontation on the hill where somebody yells, "Take the hill," and then they run into the police, and there's a confrontation there. This, again, is based on a historical incident, and a lot of things, like apparently Jerry Rubin yelling at the police to put down the guns and fight like a man or something like that. A lot of the details are historical, but it gets all changed around, because I think what happened in reality is somebody yelled, "Take the hill." They ran up and took the hill, and there were no police there at the time, and then the confrontation with the police came after the protesters were already on the hill. And the protesters had climbed up on the statue and were waving the Viet Cong flag. And then the police came to take them down from the hill. And then that's where the confrontation came and everybody got clubbed. And again, it's one of those things where I'm not exactly sure why Aaron Sorkin changed that around, because I think it works just as well from a dramatic standpoint, the way it actually happened. There are a lot of things like that where he changed things around. Anyways, I could probably ramble on about this all day, but I'm not going to. I've already done one whole video, 30-minute video rambling, and I'll try and bring this up to conclusion. I have some conflicted feelings about some of the things that Aaron Sorkin has changed around for entertainment purposes, and there are a lot of cases where I think he's misrepresenting the history, or there are a lot of cases where I think the actual history was more dramatic than what Aaron Sorkin showed. But the thing is, if you watch a video that's based entirely off of the courtroom transcripts, like Conspiracy, the Trial of the Chicago 8, which you can watch, it's not as entertaining as Sorkin's version. Certain sections and certain scenes are much more powerful than those equivalent scenes in Aaron Sorkin's version. But the thing about Aaron Sorkin's versions is, well, maybe the individual scenes taken as individual scenes don't stack up to the real history as well, both from a realistic standpoint and from a dramatic standpoint. Aaron Sorkin has managed to make a 2-hour and 10-minute movie which is incredibly well-paced and incredibly, the momentum just carries it through, so that you never really feel bored when you're watching Aaron Sorkin's movie. Even though a number of those plot elements are really cheesy, I think he understands how to keep the momentum of the movie going in a way that you wouldn't get from a more historically accurate version. Even though there are a lot of individual scenes where he's kind of missing out on the drama, the screenplay as a whole, I think he's one of the best screenwriters living alive today. So it's no accident that he understands as well as anybody how to keep the momentum of the story going, and that's what he does incredibly well. And when you watch this movie, from the moment you put it on until the moment it ends, you are just hooked in the drama of the whole thing. And there's that snappy Sorkin dialogue, and it's just going so fast, and it just flows, and it's never boring, no matter what else you might want to say about it. So I have a number of quibbles with it, but it's just entertaining. So I'm going to give this one a solid 8 out of 10. It doesn't get a 10 out of 10 for me because of all the complaints I've been mentioning about it, but in terms of pure entertainment value, 8 out of 10.